Following the terror attacks in Brussels and Paris, residents are left to wonder if there is a way to better integrate the poor immigrant communities where many of the terrorists lived.
It's 52 years and counting for Nigeria's Air Force, and to mark the anniversary, the service is doing what it's always done, helping the local community.
And 9 young female musicians in Ivory Coast break into the music industry, making themselves a household name in Abidjan. They're even booking shows abroad. Africa 54 starts right now. Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory of the Voice of America, coming to you from our global headquarters in Washington.
And I'm Cynthia Are here in Lagos. Stay with us in the next half hour for news and stories from Nigeria and the world on this edition of Africa 54.
We begin in Brussels and Paris, where people are asking if there are ways to better integrate poor ethnic immigrant communities, home to many of the terrorists who struck those cities. Reporter Lisa Bryant has more.
Molenbeek is just a half-hour walk from the historic heart of Brussels, but in many ways it's another universe. More than half a dozen different nationalities live here, although Moroccans are the dominant migrant community. It's a place of frustrated hopes and high unemployment.
When we hear lots of kids, they don't feel like they're a part of this society. They say there's nothing for us. We have no job, we have no decent housing.
Neighborhood associations like Yes, a youth empowerment group, are trying to turn things around. But they're facing another reality, Molenbeek's reputation in recent years as Europe's so-called hotbed of radicalism. It's in Molenbeek where jihadists have returned from Syria and where some of the suspects behind the Paris and Brussels terror attacks grew up. For some Belgians, the attacks and Molenbeek itself reflect their country's failure to integrate its large immigrant Muslim community.
I'm just angry. I'm just angry. There's no word to explain this. What did we do? What did we do? What did these people do? Nothing.
Experts say the reality isn't so simple. Many Muslim immigrants do feel Belgian, even if they don't always feel accepted.
Yes, I do feel a bit stigmatized, like a lot of people, but it's small-minded people who think this way. I think we need to move forward together. The first thing is to stop marginalizing young people in ghettos so they don't always feel rejected.
Reports suggest young Belgian Muslims have recently been getting SMS messages to fight Westerners. But for some Molenbeek youth, the Brussels attacks have hit home.
Ces gens-là, ils n'ont pas de religion. En fait, je sais pas,
My cousin was at the airport, and she is a Muslim, and she was also wounded.
Et elle est musulmane. Elle a été blessée aussi.
Maybe before they were like, yeah, well, it's not here, but now it's here. A family got hit. People they know that got hit. People they care about got hit.
The same conflicts are playing out in neighboring France. Like Belgium, it also has a large North African immigrant community. France and Belgium are considered Europe's two leading exporters of jihadists to Syria and Iraq.
These children from the second and third generation don't really feel French. The problem is the incapacity of this country to confront its history and to construct a shared history.
Today, some French politicians claim there are dozens of Molenbeeks in France, including some of the country's infamous banlieues, low-income, high-immigrant suburbs. Sévran, located a half-hour subway ride from Paris, is considered one of them. Some Sévran residents complain of mounting radicalism. An extremist mosque was only recently shut down. But Mayor Stéphane Gatignon says the problem of radical Islam is bigger than just one town. It needs to be fought across a whole territory, and it means looking at places like Sévran and integration differently.
On voit bien, par exemple, au niveau culturel, c'est ici que ça se passe. C'est dans nos territoires, au niveau sportif aussi.
It's here that things are being created. Things are happening in terms of culture, sports, and businesses. That's what an open society is all about. What France is proposing is a closed society.
Société ouverte. Nous, aujourd'hui, ce qu'on propose en France, c'est une société fermée.
Local activist and entrepreneur Yassine Hilmi agrees. He describes visiting the United States.
Même l'étranger, il vient d'arriver.
Even newly arrived foreigners will say, I'm an American. There's a sense of patriotism and belonging that's very different from France, unfortunately.
So in Molenbeek and in Sévran, people believe new answers need to be found to fight radicalism. Part of it means acknowledging the melting pot that defines Belgium and France today and creating a sense of belonging to both neighborhood and nation. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Brussels.
Defending people and touching lives, the Nigerian Air Force is marking its 52nd anniversary. As it does so, the Air Force is organizing free medical services in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, with people receiving medical tests, eye treatment, drugs and mosquito nets. Our correspondent Emmanuel Ray reports.
This gathering is at the instance of the Special Operations Group of the Nigerian Air Force to provide free medicals for residents of Rumomasi in Obiakpo local government area in Rivers State. The commander of the Special Operations Group, Nigerian Air Force, says this is a way of giving back to the community.
The Air Force has been involved in operations in the northeast, in Niger Delta region, and everywhere there are crises. That is the hard approach. The Chief of Air Staff thought twice that this 52nd anniversary of the Nigerian Air Force existence, we should also carry out the soft approach, winning the hearts and mind of immediate communities. And based on that, this humanitarian medical outreach is being organized.
One-year-old Martha and this youth corps member are volunteers for the cardiopulmonary resuscitation exercise to teach residents some first aid treatments.
It's commendable. We did not approach them, but they on their own decided to do this. And I think it's also meeting a need we have in the community, so it's welcome.
Some residents believe this exercise is timely.
If this can be so regular, I'll be so happy.
Things are hard now. Not everybody have the money to buy drugs, this and that. For you people practicing on this or doing these things to the low-profile masses, I think it will be better.
I'm very, very happy. I thank them for doing this type of thing. And I thank Air Force Authority, both the federal government, for introducing this type of medical scheme. But I'm appealing to them to extend it to other communities, not only Rivers State alone.
For the people, this gesture by the Nigerian Air Force is a good example of community service that should be encouraged. Emmanuel Ere, Channels Television News.
Here in the United States, voters in the state of New York hold their presidential primary on Tuesday, and it's not looking good for Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who is far behind businessman Donald Trump in the race for the Republican nomination. Cruz had his chances there earlier this year with a negative remark about Trump's New York values. VOA's Ramon Taylor reports.
For Senator Ted Cruz, the days leading up to the New York primary have been a very bad dream.
Get out of the Bronx! If you're anti-immigrant, you're not welcome here!
Across New York City's 5 boroughs, residents have given Cruz a taste of their values.
Cruz has to go back home. Look at his face.
When New York City and state leaders asked the Texas senator to apologize for comments he made in January in which he criticized businessman Donald Trump for embodying New York values, as in socially liberal values, he agreed, but with qualifications.
I apologize to all the pro-life and pro-marriage and pro-Second Amendment New Yorkers who were told by Governor Cuomo that they have no place in New York, because that's not who New Yorkers are.
But any effort to reach out to New York's conservative base may be for naught. Although Cruz remains in second place among Republicans nationwide, he is running 35 points behind Trump in the state's latest polls. And Trump has embraced the opportunity.
His words were New York values. Take a look at the scorn on his face.
Ohio Governor John Kasich, who is running second and leads Cruz, has launched a new TV ad called Values.
Ted Cruz sneered at our New York values.
You know, I think most people know exactly what New York values are.
Ted Cruz divides to get a vote. John Kasich unites to get things done.
On average, New York's Republicans are less socially conservative than Southern evangelicals. But that does not mean Cruz hasn't found pockets of support, including from members of the Orthodox Jewish community in Brighton Beach, where many share his definition of family values.
It stands for moral values, important of a strong family unit.
Others support his tough stance on immigration.
If someone breaks into your house, you don't let them stay in your house. If someone breaks into the country, you got to send them back.
But Cruz, who rolled matzo balls with the Jewish community last week, appears to be running out of time to persuade New Yorkers to choose him over Trump and Kasich. Ramon Taylor, VOA News, New York.
To the Horn of Africa now. Many people from war-torn Yemen are fleeing to that region, a place whose own citizens have been scattered by conflict. Some are Africans returning to their countries of origin, but many others are Yemenis with nowhere else to turn. Joe Craig reports from Hargeisa in Somalia.
Wasim Saeed Mohammed arrived in Somaliland in February with his wife and 2 sons. They fled Yemen after Houthi militants attacked their home in Aden.
This is the only country where the cost of living is cheap, and there is good security, and I can live with the people.
Mohammed works at a bakery owned by his uncle's Syrian friend, Abdul Rahman Darwish. He had been living in Yemen since the 1980s, but brought his family to Hargeisa last year.
The situation here is very good, but I'm lacking some materials and support. I want to leave and go to another country, but it's very difficult. I cannot take the risk at sea with my wife and 2 daughters. If I can get some legal way to Europe or elsewhere, I'll be willing to do that.
Options for Yemeni refugees are limited. Most don't have the money to pay smugglers or attempt the long, dangerous route to Europe, which involves crossing the Gulf of Aden, then going by land through Egypt to access the Mediterranean. And even then, many can't get visas in Europe or even Turkey. Somaliland may be safe and welcoming, but it is poor. Unemployment is high. The UNHCR says that of the 10,000 people who have arrived here from Yemen, about 1,900 are Yemeni nationals. There is no refugee camp in Somaliland. The government says it is open to the idea, but the UN says the numbers don't justify it. Somaliland broke away from Somalia in 1991 after a 3-year war. So many of the people here know the refugee experience firsthand. Still, resources are limited.
The refugees are in the same situation as Somalilanders because the Somalilanders also don't have enough jobs. So anyone who had skills working in Yemen, he can do the same here. But we are trying to help them.
Upon arrival, refugees are given food, medical care, and cash, about $100 per person from the UN. They can also get transport within Somalia if they wish, but it's not enough for some.
I want to leave. I want to leave this country. I want to go to a civilized country. I want to live. I want to be stable financially. I want to be stable in my life. I want to go back to school. Do something. Make a life. Here is not life. There's no life here.
For now, they must make the best of things here in Somaliland. Jill Craig, VOA News, Hargeisa.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, 2 years later, the Chibok girls are still missing as Nigeria watches and waits. We'll talk about that and the topic of girls' education and rights right after the break.